Today's organizations are run by a number of executives who fundamentally do not understand how the business model works underneath.
So this is a special podcast, special conversation for special people,
Growth at all costs led to half the growth at double the cost, right? And that, in the next 2 years, will be completely redefined. I believe the asymmetry of needs in the role that AI plays will decrease 90% of the demand for salespeople that we have today. It has started, it is unstoppable, and it is accelerating right now.
Are you talking only SMB or the kind of mid-sized enterprise as well, upmarket?
Everywhere.
I personally associate entrepreneurship with tech right now.
99% of all humankind, when they think about founders of Silicon Valley startup companies, what do they think of?
Probably like a nerd, a geek.
As a founder, you're making probably lower than minimum wage for decades. You're a technology immigrant. You've left a well-established life and you immigrated to a completely uncertain, high-risk, like low-pay.
That's right.
Many future trends are predicted. And the same thing with Oblivion, and the same thing with Star Trek, and the same thing with Star Wars. You see that futurists have a long time have predicted where the future goes to.
Yeah.
However, they always seem to be wrong on time.
Don't touch them.
That'll happen here.
It hasn't happened yet.
Interesting. Okay, continue. What do you mean?
Predict what you think your business will look like in 10 years. Assume that will look like in 18 months. The future isn't just a place we get to go. It's a place we get to create. You and I, Michael, we can create it. Why don't we create something beautiful out of it?
That's true. Of winning by design of your work, and I've been a follower, a listener, and the person who was using a lot of your tables and a lot of documentation for my internal use and training, and just generally, educating and sending. For example, like even the funnel that you have on your resource page, I sent it to my CMO this morning. It's like, hey, look, this is an amazing idea of the funnel. We should do something like that, So, kudos for great work. You guys are, pioneers, examples. So it's an honor and privilege to have you on my show.
Thank you very much. For every reason, I think Wind River makes our heads are normally I have to adjust it, but I see that Wind River makes our heads approximately the same size, right? Already, right? So, okay,
correct.
In that case,
Yeah.
I stopped
And
worrying about it because
yeah.
I was trying to make sure that.
Oh no, listen, by the way, so I will have your source with like all the full screens, and then I have a professional motion design team, actually 4 of those guys that will be doing everything top notch. So we can just casually do whatever the fuck we want, and then they will make it very nice and clean with the sizes and stuff. So yeah. So I will share with you the other episodes, so you will look at the quality of so this is a special podcast, special conversation for special people, with the special quality of the production that no one is making money from, but enjoying doing this, with the heart and smile.
This.
What is that?
That's a board I built for Philips, but it's a video processor. So this turns regular video into, in those days, the first MPEG-2 broadcast of the world were coming out of that system that I've created in the late 1990s, late 1990s, mid 1990s. In other words, I understand video. That's what my point was. In other words, like hallelujah video.
Imagine how technology progressed over the short period of time, right? So now we can do a 4K filming on cloud in real time with whatever different internet we have on the different times of the globe, and having everything download in real time to the cloud and then using that. It's incredible.
And all enabled. There's basic technologies behind it, right? Yeah, but all good. Yeah.
Basic.
I'm ready when you're ready.
And compute. Well, we're already rolling, by the way. So it's a kind of a Joe Rogan style. So I have a first question, Jacco, to kick this off. How often do you check your sugar level with the amount of Red Bull you're drinking? Be honest.
I only drink 1 Red Bull a day. So I do not check sugar levels. And the problem is that most people when you look at like certain data, you look at the data of the average perspective, right? But if you have been drinking Red Bull one a day for the past, whatever, 20 years, like I don't think that my metrics would A, show up as normal, and B, would tell me anything different than I already know. It's like I probably should stop drinking sugar intake. But look, it's the one little thing that makes me happy every day. So I go like that I die of something, right?
What's the story behind Red Bull?
In early 2000s, I do not drink alcohol, do not drink any, no caffeine, never drank coffee, like all that stuff. So no medicine. I'm not a believer in medicine. I'm just like my human body is designed better. And I can tell you, if we cannot solve hair loss, then who am I supposed to trust on the medical side that they have anything better, right? So point being is, I became an athlete, and as an athlete, like our team was sponsored by Red Bull. That gave me access to unlimited and free Red Bull. I learned how it kicked me, and I loved it, and so I just got not hooked onto it, or I'm hooked on it. I can say it out loud.
Why no coffee? Alcohol, understandable, but no coffee.
For whatever reason, when I grew up, I grew up in a poor family, and not a poor, but like a factory family.
Mm-hmm.
And factory families, when you go lower into the tiers of income, you end up at smoking, coffee. Those are the ingredients that make life happy. And so everybody around me seemed to consume an exorbitant amount of smoking and coffee. And for whatever reason, I associate it with tar on your fingers, yellow teeth. And so I have this weird visual picture of what coffee does. Whether it's accurate or not doesn't matter. But and so I became an instant anti against it, just seeing it, seeing people all around me being tarred and yellow teeth.
All right. Another random question, maybe for you, but not for me. But you guys sell merch on your website. Who came up with this idea of the official store, and why?
The merch is a temporary holder. What we are noticing is that we are more and more having to provide education into the field. And so we had to be able to make things available, like a book or a poster and stuff like that, so people can hang it. But then while we were there, we go like, okay, why don't we put a t-shirt on there and stuff like that? Now, the other thing that we needed is we often have to, when we do a workshop for executives, we have to create a bundle. So they say, oh, give me like 8 books and 2 posters. So we said, like, why don't we just bundle that and let the EA over there buy it before we are starting to constantly take custom orders on books. And so we just needed a merch store, an enablement store or something like that. And so we decided, okay, well, throw other creative stuff on there as well.
So I can go ahead and just buy a t-shirt with Winning by Design, right? Do you have
That's
it
right.
in stock? You have it in stock in M?
More revenue architecture, but yes, you can buy whatever, like whatever our designers came up with. And it's, like if you think of you're a designer at Winning by Design, right? Like you're creating all this stuff, but never anybody buys it really, right? Like, like you just get likes on LinkedIn, but this was their, like this is their outlet. Go ahead, put yourself out there and put some cool stuff on there.
100%. We spend decent amount on designed kind of collaboration with some designers to create our own merch with like some weird designs and the backpacks and stuff. So I understand, and because it's a creative piece of work, you want the world to see it and people buy it. But then it brings me to the point of brand in general. Do you care about the brand of Winning by Design, and generally what's the role of branding, and do you think that this is one of the kind of pillars of the branding for you guys? And if yes, then did the brand or strong brand that you have, and you guys have a very strong brand in the industry, how does it help in growing the business, going through the motion of the crises that we've been in and are in, and so on and so forth? Curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, brand reflects dedication of an organization to a market. Brand you don't build overnight. Brand takes decade, right? And what it reflects is that particular group of people, person, and so on, has dedicated themselves to solving a problem in the market. That is what brand is to me, right? I know with Apple, I know I'm going to get a whole bunch of dedicated people building fantastic products that, like, and so on and so forth, right? And I know with certain brands of what you're buying. So that's what I think. It's it shows a reflection, a dedication to the market over years, if not decades.
But that it also, brand needs a consistent investment, right? So you cannot do that if you are not consistently investing into spreading the word about your brand, right? And generating all of those resources and downloadables and doing all of those actions over a longer period of time, more than your competition, basically. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I will wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that the person that we're now seeing, and I'm trying to make this like I'm thinking about it from the listener to this, like what we are living in a world is where sometimes an individual builds a brand within the company, and that individual's brand is becoming bigger than the company's brand, right?
Yeah.
And what I find, and which is problematic, I think for all of us too, it's not done with bad intent, but the result is that the individual uses the company's brand to layer up, but never, once they leave that company, never give the brand back to what it got from the brand. So it's a very asymmetrous relationship. Like what is it? The cuckoo's nest, right? Like you have an invasive species enter the nest, kicking out all the. That is essentially what I see today is happening a lot at companies, in which originally it was well intended, because originally it was intended to bring the customers back to the brand. But today, those people spin off and start competing with the company that previously they were part of.
What do you think about the intention behind building a strong brand? You can build a great marketing, you can be a great delivery, but if you're not intentional and not thinking about building the brand and what steps you're making towards that brand, then you might be able just to create a great or good business that provide the value, but it's not going to be brand. And then when you think about or build the brand, then you always do this one more step into, these small things that over a longer period of time matters, because then you're like, oh, they have amazing branding. It's like, example is, even the logo, for example, your logo, right? When you put them in this very nice artistic manner, you look at this and you remember it. So have you been over the last 12 years doing any intentional brand building initiatives? And if yes, what they've been, or it was just happened? I
think there are certain intent. The intent was don't change the logo. It doesn't matter how it is. Keep it, like not other than minute changes. Because over the years I go like, oh, that's a cool logo, right?
Yeah.
But don't do it, because people, whatever it is, once they recognize it, they recognize it. So don't start changing and mucking around with the logo. That's one. Number two, have norms and values behind your brand. So historically, until still to today, we do not take outside forms of payments. And what I mean with that is like a brand, like an email automation tool or a call recording tool cannot say, if you recommend us, we kick you back 10%. We have in the statutes of Winning by Design written down is that you cannot do that. If you want to take an advisory board position in any of our executives, then you have to require approval, including myself, and it has never been granted. So nobody at Winning by Design has industry-related board positions. Now, we have a few of our members also set up the Women in Revenue. That is a different momentum, right? And so, but we have in the statutes, we have written down that you cannot, the only person that pays us is the companies whose name is written on the purchase order. Like that's the only company. So I never wanted to mix that. That's a form of brand, right? You got to commit to that early on. Now, believe me, Michael, we have had a lot of challenges on that over the years, right? Because, like if I say that to a Kyle in those days at Sales Loft and to a Manny at Outreach, both of them were, like with the right intent of trying to say, and I say no to both think to themselves like, well, I'm not going to recommend Winning by Design anywhere, right? And and whether it was with Gong and Chorus and SaaSter and SaaS Talk, right? Like you get you get these brands competing with each other, and to be independent is to be considered a threat. Not you would think that would be that was the hardest choice that we had to pay for year after year.
Imagine like you are shaking hands with all of these big guys, tier 1 companies, like collaborative growth, like, you can affect each other a lot. And then you say, no, What was the intention behind it? Why you decided to go this route?
Customer centricity. You can't tell it that it's a requirement and then behind the scene not do it. You got to be pure. And I figured out as the brand would grow over the years to come, if you don't have very pure and very easy to understand statutes, then the gauntlet is loose, right? It's going to go everywhere. Now, that doesn't mean that, like I said, it's like if one person wants to help their parents in the flower shop and they want to, work, 10 hours a week on that. Like, of course, that is completely, possible. But to hold strong on that has been historically costing us money on projects and on favors that otherwise would have been granted to us.
So what you're saying is that many, for example, from outreach or sales off can become a client, but in any way, shape, form, there will be no advising or anything like that. There will be a purely transactional client-vendor relationship between both companies, right?
Let me say it differently. If a company comes to us and says hey, who should I pick, outreach or sales loft?
Right.
Well, in the early days, we could define it. What is your tool stack, and we could make a recommendation.
Yeah.
Today, they are interchangeable, right? And so, we would say that's not our decision to make. What we can tell you is do it this way or this way, right? Here's the things, and here we have a sales loft customer that you can speak to, and here you have an outreach customer you can speak to, right? Or a groove customer, or a mix-max customer, right? We would apply all these different things, and we are not here to determine which shovel you are going to use to dig the hole with, right? And that mindset is for us is key. We've implemented that throughout the company. Board positions, payments, kickbacks. Now, sponsorships are fine because it's openly presented. So if you do an event and it's sponsored by then there's a clear sign. This, food is being sponsored by XYZ. That is clear. That's like a one-time event. That is not like a long-term approach or anything. And even that we hardly ever do.
One cheesy question. Tell me about your travel office, about the van. I'm curious also to learn how often do you use it, where you go, and just generally what kind of span you to the point of having machine that you can use and again to travel. And I'm personally curious, being the traveler myself, and maybe I can take something from this and buy myself a Dodge.
Now, first of all, a van is a fantastic thing because it changes your workplace. And I grew up in the Netherlands, and I remember office buildings were built so that human beings would have maximum access to natural light, I believe, for at least 6 hours of the 8 working hours that you have. You need to, and so the buildings are built very narrow with the hallway in the middle with offices on both sides, so everybody has natural light. So clearly it has been proven that human beings in natural daylight have a better life experience, right? That extends to if that daylight comes from an ocean view under a tree at a lake or a river. So if I have to do work, most of the times, why not do work while at the ocean? I'm living in California. Now, combine it with the technology that we have today, aka, satellite access with unlimited, equal bandwidth. Connect that with fantastic weather, which we didn't have in the Netherlands, right? Why wouldn't I do this? The primary reason is because people misunderstand that a van is expensive while it is not. A car is considered a liability because the moment in time you drive it off the lot, its value depreciates quickly. If you make that a van is consisting of 2 elements, the car and the build on top of it. And the build on top of it makes the car no longer a liability, but an asset. That means that anytime you buy a van, your depreciation is much less. Mm-hmm. Even if you buy the van, whether it's for construction or for pleasure, the retained value is a lot higher. So as long as you can expend $20,000 on a car, which still is not available to everybody, I get that, but here in the US, I would say that is a lot easier. Then you can get a $100,000 van because you're only paying for the depreciation, right? And so with that, I now live in my van. I'll drive in my van. I'm on a spot, at least guaranteed 5 days a week when I'm not traveling. Most of the time, 6 days a week. And I would say, often 7 days a week.
Wow. The most dangerous adventure on the van. Have you had any accident incidents? The one with like wolves and stuff, on the trail and.
No, none of that. Like, like the most dangerous place for me to park is San Francisco. Like if customers nowadays come to the Silicon Valley to meet with me and they say, I'll meet you in the city, it's got to be very special for me to come to the city, because I go like, I can meet you in Palo Alto, but I no longer go in the city because I can't park my van there, right? Now, my van is a luxury van. It's, like it has, like it powers itself via solar, gasoline, whatever source of energy it can find. It will route all that. So it's a working office. I've had meetings in there, right? I can close the shower in the bedroom, and then I have a nice office, a little suite in the front. For those of you who think it's big, it's not that big. It's 20 feet, which is about, 6 to 7 meters in Europe. It fits in a regular parking spot. Mm-hmm. What I noticed is if you're sub 20 feet, most parks here in America will allow you to park in a camping spot, so you don't have to be on the ugly RV concrete plate out in the sun. You can be nice and under the trees.
Yeah, I did last year. I went to Burning Man, and we did from LA to Nevada and back through the natural parks, and we spent like a week in the RV and then camping. It was the first time experiencing, traveling and working. It was fun. I liked it a lot. I wanted to try that in Europe, maybe UK. Do you have this like a circle or something?
Ireland is fantastic too, right?
Yeah. How does the traveling, or did the traveling shape you in a way you approach work or you approach life in a way?
No, I think it does. I think that you can't imagine, like that. When you're in an office with each other, you have the great sense of collaboration. And collaboration, allows you to build off one another. I'm one of the people who believe that in many cases that also can form a hindrance, a lack of ability. And so, for example, and I forgot where it was. It's the word dogmatism, I think, comes to mind here.
Mm-hmm.
And if today, if you would read and if you would go to every conference and listen to every person that speaks on stage, you would destroy your company, and you would implement that, you would destroy your company very quickly. Because there's too many, you can't distinguish. The same thing when you're in an office. What that means is when you go on your own and you sit in your own van and you create a form of solitude. At the stage where I'm at in my career, which is after building 30 years of experience doing it,
right?
Then the last couple of years thinking about it, that gives you like the good thought. Now, I don't think that you can do that when you're in your 20s. I think that will give you a different perspective. It may, see things that nobody else can see that never had been seen before, right? But yeah, for me, the solitude was needed to come to the clear of mind that I needed in order to write the book Revenue Architecture and to try to help solve all these revenue growth problems that we are currently experiencing in our world.
Mm-hmm. I second this, and I'm trying personally to limit the source of information that I'm getting and trying to get to a solitude as often as they can. Although that means that I might don't know everything that is happening in the industry, but instead I can generate the ideas that will be more to the point with where I'm at, because they will be based on the experiences and on the gut feeling and on the clients, and just looking at the ways of like think critically about where we are rather than just copy pasting or just following the trend of the others, right?
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. Like, and right now we live in a world that is dominated and in where we're going by following the crowds. And even if you don't think you're following the crowds, the algorithms are making you follow the crowds, right? And that can be very worrisome and at times and lead to extremism. But the same can happen in the B2B world, where suddenly everybody is following the same trend, which shouldn't be a trend in the first place. And I say that after a decade worth of growth at all costs trend that we find ourselves in today is in a perfect example of that. And what will we do? How do we correct it? How do we get out of here? You don't get out of here by listening to the crowds.
My idea of getting out of this is conscious capitalism. Are you familiar with this terminology?
I'm not.
No. So basically the conscious capitalism is generating the value that is directed to more people and from more people rather than creating a streamlined automation. So for example, like trading ASP 500 stocks is not conscious capitalism because you can enrich yourself, you can play the others. Creating conscious capitalism is like, running a call center or like a shop where you can impact the lives of more people. Or it's like when you have an Amazon delivery, when you can create more jobs and then you can, connect more people, and then you can essentially spread the value through lower margins, lower scale per employee, but more impact to the community around you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, I'm curious to hear you out because you probably have some thoughts on kind of how we can get out of this.
Let me ask you, if not you, but 99% of all humankind, when they think about founders of Silicon Valley startup companies, what do they think of?
Probably like a nerd, a geek, someone that like codes with laptop. That's it.
Okay. Probably very well. If you think about the world, you think about the Zuckerbergs and so on, very wealthy folks that,
Right. I don't think so. I mean, not anymore, probably, because everyone is in IT. It's like when you ask someone, maybe it's just the people that I talk to, but what do you do for a living? I'm in IT. I'm an engineer. Or I'm a designer. Right. So.
Well, the reason why I'm saying is most people get founders the wrong way. And what you're describing is what the dream of a founder is, what they start most founders start a company on. As a founder, you're making probably lower than minimum wage for decades, right? You're willing to, you're an immigrant, you're a technology immigrant. You've left a well-established life and you immigrated to a completely uncertain, high risk, like low pay, like guaranteed, so you're a technology immigrant, right? You're right in that, right? But that perspective is never there, right? The perspective is often if, you're like, if I get into a car, if as a founder gets into a car accident, right?
Yeah.
And the other person understands that you're a founder, of course we're not going to settle on the spot right now. Of course we're going to let this take over. Of course I'm going to file a lawsuit, right? Like, okay, I hit the jackpot. I hit a founder of a Silicon Valley startup company, right? Like I'm exaggerating down here, but you get the idea behind it.
Yeah.
Complete misconception, right? It's a misconception of 99% of all founders who are, like living in average houses, living regular lives, just following a passion and a dream that they believe on generally on how to make the world a better place. That's true.
That's true. Although while you were saying this, I was just thinking about the fact that I personally associate entrepreneurship with tech right now, as if like that's the easiest, shortest possible way to get to entrepreneurship is build a tech company. Maybe it's just because I'm from this industry, or I probably like even 20 years or 10 years ago, getting the internet and starting an internet company was the thing. Like everyone, like I know, like I graduated, I worked for some jobs, and then the first thing I remember, like I would never start my own, a shop, a farm, a manufacturing facility, nothing. It's like the first thing you do is like you go and you like start a tech company, right? Because you kind of can learn and you're around about the marketing, the acquisition, then how to get the clients, then kind of you are looking at the different, from the finance to marketing to whatever, you can figure out your own niche and just be better with that and find your customer half out 10, 20, and then now I'm a small entrepreneur basically, right?
So let me give you an idea about entrepreneurship and where entrepreneurship takes place. Not because it is a cool thing to do, but because it's the only thing to do. And when I say only thing, it's the only way to get back to human life. Incarcerated people in North America, in the US, have a very hard time to find a job. Why? Because they have a tag slapped onto them and, it has to be disclosed during the hiring process in many cases. So their only way out is entrepreneurship. Now, this is not entrepreneurship, so I'm going to launch, the next Facebook. These are entrepreneurship. The person I work with was a woman who just, and this is a program where a number of selected, entrepreneurs come out of an incarcerated environment, have to present their business plan. And she launched a spray tan van that would park at weddings, so that when right before the people get married, they can have the beautiful tan and look beautiful what they want. Like, that's entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. That's true.
And what you'll see is they have no other route.
Yes.
This is the reason why you often see, when people come out of an incarcerated world, they start like a Chipotle food chain. They start to create things out of the necessity and the need.
Yeah,
And
that's
I think that technology could be one of them. Like many entrepreneurs come out of all across the world of lesser fortunate countries. Right?
Yeah.
Romania, Eastern Europe, right?
I am Ukrainian, so imagine that, right? So yeah, and actually the reason I started the agency because I was out of the job, I didn't have a lot of savings, so I had to provide for myself, and I thought that no good company gonna hire me. It's gonna take me for ages, and I didn't want to work for average company, and I didn't have a lot of experience. So I'm in my early 20s. So we started an agency because I was good at business development, and we started offering that as a service, right? Obviously, over the years, when you start, building a multi-million-dollar company and hundreds of people, and then SaaS, and then you can kind of bootstrap, and you start knowing fancy words. But the initial intent, as you said, was exactly that. Hey, I need to do something that I can provide for myself to generate the value, right, in return, right? And so I 100% agree with you that that's the main driver most of the time. Yes.
And that's entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, I believe, similar to what you is offer. You can have two forms of entrepreneurship. One that has it comes out of a fortunate world, has plenty of wealth associated and given tools, and one that comes out of an unfortunate world, right? And my parents post World War II were like that. I would bet, as an investor, I would bet always on the one who comes out of an unfortunate world, because the amount of vigor and energy and that they have and they bring to the table goes way beyond. And as we hit in the market, as if we hit right now tough economies, right? I look at the companies and go like, okay, if I now had to place a bet, I'm going to put a bet on all the companies that are founded by people who I know can toughen this out.
Right, but it took some years to realize that, like Silicon Valley, come on, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. It's like, getting the investment from the Eastern Europe when you are hungry for like actually making something is not possible, because you don't have a nice pitch deck that you can raise 25 million on an idea, because you need to show the access, right? So at least we're in this future, the future that I and my team knows how to work in, because we know how to, make money and not raise capital. So there was this video that I saw a few days ago about the fact that the cost of labor, that labor has never been as cheap as it is right now. I think that was Scott Galloway talked about that. The fact that if you invest into SAP, and if you've done that from the 2010 and go up, then you are having like hundreds of % ROI, and then the labor is like this way. So essentially, like playing the long stock makes more financial sense than doing any work whatsoever.
Although in general, I agree that labor is getting cheaper. I can tell you here in Silicon Valley, it is not as cheap as it was before, and even if I take into account. The reason for that is salaries increase faster than they fall down with markets. And so we're now still that the salaries may have started to stabilize, but the rate that they increased with over the 2019-2021 timeframe is not the same rate they're going to decrease with since early 2022. So if I look at an SDR salary, sales development rep salary, which is a very early startup job, which in 2014-15 would cost about $35,000. At the end of 2021, we're looking at least $85,000 to $90,000 at a comparable market. That means about 3x. I can tell you that today that salary has not dropped to $35,000. It may have dropped to $75,000, $80,000. That's still 2x of what it was, and probably still way too expensive for the job that it does.
That's true, especially from the point if you're hiring someone from out of college or just generally as experience, because then when you're spending $85,000 just on an SDR with associated tools and extra benefits and all of the other things, like how many leads that SDR needs to generate to justify the ROI on that one position, right? Like what's your CAC would be through the roof, right? So I think that companies that have that, for me, it's usually between, if you're making less than 25,000 ACV, you are not able to afford an SDR team to be able to generate a pipeline for you. You need to do a PLG. Is that the case or no?
A little bit, but like it has a lot to do with volume and what kind of market you're in. Vertical SaaS, it's a little bit better off because like it's if you sell to trucking companies, it has more of a tendency to pick up the phone and to respond to email than if you sell a marketing and sales solution to a VP of marketing, right? So like it needs to be calculated, but like you're not too far off, right?
Yeah.
SDR-based solutions can become effective at about $10,000 ACV.
Yeah. Okay. 10,000. And actually, I have this question, and you're the only one that I would love to ask this question, considering your experience and your background. So, I'm from the, SDR appointment setting, B2B, that's our bread and butter. So do you personally believe, or do you have data that the outsourcing of the SDR function works well for SaaS companies?
It works well for SaaS companies if the product is well defined and the pricing in the market is established. So if I have a product that is very common, very easy to understand, very simple value prop, an outsourced SDR organization works. If you're selling a complex product that needs a specialized person, needs to, like price changes on the fly, as an outsourced SDR organization doesn't work.
Go ahead, sorry.
Historically, you'll see that the nature of the SDR organization comes out of this. The nature of the SDR organization comes out of Salesforce reps calling up an SAP customer and saying, hey, you know what you're paying $1 million a year for? I can sell it to you for $4,000 a month, right? And post the 2007-8 market crash, that was a fantastic CapEx, in those days, CapEx, OpEx pitch. That was the easy pitch. And all the SDR had to do was set up the meeting. So it worked. Today, that pitch now falls among 36,000 SaaS companies who make the same pitch. So that no longer works. So that's one of the many reasons why the SDR-driven sales organizations no longer work.
How to make it work? Like top 3, what would you implement or change, or advices for people if they want to make this work?
It depends on per company, but I'll give you an idea is you got to get close to your customer where they're at and interrupt them the moment they want to be interrupted. Give you a simple example. If you're selling a solutions for gyms, right? Or as in physical exercise, right? Many companies would say, oh, and let's say you're, pick a city in Europe where you're doing this.
Berlin.
You say in Berlin, you can go like, oh, I'm going to call all them up. You can do that. Or you can go and walk all of them, find where they're at, walk into the gym, talk to the manager. I can tell you the latter has a better success these days.
100%, yeah.
Right? Now, you would if I calculate out what is the right use of an SDR then, and I say like, well, what if I fly an SDR into a good German-speaking, of course, in this case, to Berlin, and that person walks, how many gyms can they cover? So let's say it takes them a 30-minute conversation. So let's say, 4 gyms a day?
Right.
5 days a week. That's 20 gyms times 4 weeks. That's 80 gyms, rounded off down a little bit, 60, right? 60 gyms.
Yeah. It's much
Convert 1 in 3, 1 in 4, you're right there. That makes sense. Now you're using an SDR in a physical capacity. I know it's knocking down doors seems odd, but in the vertical market where a manager stands at the front desk, you're selling a solution that needs to reflect how they operate the business is much more productive than trying to get them on the phone, because the density of the gyms in a capital city like Berlin is relatively high. Now, if I have to sell to farmers in the Midwest of America, where every farmer may be like 20 miles apart from the next one, then of course you cannot walk, and it becomes a different goal. What is most of the time, what it comes down to is, are you communicating in the language? And not just in the language itself, but in the cultural language to the person at the moment they wish to be interrupted, and sell them something that to them that to the customer is a priority. I'll say the following, and this is a fantastic statement that I want you to think about. Okay? Buyers dictate the way we sell, not the other way around. Buyers dictate the way we sell. That's the thing. It's called the first principle. That means as businesses, we need to learn how buyers wish to be sold to, not how we wish to sell to them.
Right.
And that is what many companies get wrong. They sell to them because they go to some conference and they see some new, whether that is a PLG motion or an SLG motion or a PLS motion, or pick any, like an enterprise, an SMB, like acronyms galore here, right? Like, but you pick a particular, that's the way, that's how I love it because it's a cost low. Like, no, you can't look at it that way. You got to look at it, build your organization the way the customers want to buy. Let me ask you, watch the following, okay? If I say HubSpot, what kind of motion, go-to-market motion comes to mind?
Probably go to the website, buy a free product, and then when you're ready, you can upgrade that. So you don't need to talk to the sales team, right?
Inbound, right? Inbound.
Right.
Okay. If I tell you Slack, what kind of GTM motion are you thinking about?
Inbound, like word of mouth.
Many would say Slack is PLG driven.
Right.
Okay. Now, what you'll see is that when a GTM motion lines up with the product it sells, it really creates a fantastic approach. The way how companies accelerate, the fast companies accelerate, is the GTM motion is a representation of the product that they are selling. It is a match.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about buying Tesla. How are today many people buying a Tesla that they speak highly of? What do?
They buy it on the website. Right.
You're buying a self-driving car by a self-service mindset. It is a match.
Yes, it is the match, but I personally is not very comfortable with that match just because yes, we're removing the friction, but at the same time, we are removing the, something like, for example, when you buy a Porsche and you go to that Porsche shop and you sit at the car and you try it and you talk with someone, if you make this experience something special, something unique, that's not a transaction. Very often, if you use only car as a transaction, which is very popular in American culture, right? Then it just removes the romanticism of emotion of the purchase, right? Like I wouldn't want to buy my car for whatever X through the website personally. But again, this is just me and I'm not the buyer. So.
Do you know how many Porsches are sold a year versus how many Teslas?
Tesla's more. Yes.
It just depends on what business you want to be in.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's why I'm this is actually one of the reasons why I so want to go to some kind of upmarket personalization. I wanted to go where you need to have a friction where the buyers are build a relationship with me, be a person with me, go shake hands, let's take a dinner, take me to the dinner, know my wife's name, whatever, but not just be on the website, the AI bot.
So you want to be a butcher in a city that is
Yes.
There's a fantastic model for that.
Thank you so much. Yes.
But just realize that is not going to be valued and has nothing to do with building wealth or export to the world, right? And consider that most startups are not built like that.
True.
Okay. So this business, and we see that here in California, can still be a very profitable and highly fantastic business. We have local farms that supply these ingredients and stuff like that. But your founder exit down here is not one of wealth that can be generational. At best, you get a good house out of it, right? But you're not going to get, your kids are going to, so the mindset is that's a different thing. You're building a different style. Winning by design as a company, we don't build that style.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to help companies go, and I call it, we're here to turn $1 million companies into $1 billion companies, right? That is our goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. It's just, for me personally, specifically this topic, there's just level of, there's for me personally, there's level of uncomfort with some business model that are highly scalable and then highly viral that I personally don't feel that I can match it with the amount of attention that I can bring to every customer. So it's like a handmade product, right? You can make like an H&M, or you can make a handmade purses, right? Like if you can price a handmade purse for like $25,000 and you're going to have a market for that, you're going to have enough margins to be it's like a Louis Vuitton business model, right? It's like you create the scarcity, you create a sort of like a smaller market, you make it an exclusive. Like it's like, for example, like similar to like this Whoop, this Whoop thing that I'm like wearing to track the vitals. You know about their business model or no? So basically,
but before you go there, look, like I know like what you want.
Yeah.
But have you been there? Have you done that?
So yes and no. So you're right that, for example, one of my SaaS companies that I built, we got it to, let's say, $150,000 MRR with a higher cost, with like no PLG. So it's like a sales driven for a very niche market. And obviously we were plateaued because we couldn't scale that. That's true. Yes.
Okay. And then you become dependent on people, and then your top people
True.
leave, and now you can find a replacement in your business. So like, look, I know that it sounds in a form idealistic, right? But in the end, once you get there, you come indeed to the conclusion is I actually don't want this either. This is my point, is what we want. We want to be the Apples. We want to be the Amazons. We want to be the brand that has this artisan nature, like a Mac computer has an artisan feel to it, right? And yet it is mass volume produced. There is room for both.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I think that, like that is obviously the world that we live in. We want to build volume-based product, like a Slack.
Right.
How is that being sold? Like a HubSpot. Like these have and are built, originally by artisans, the founders, and then they found a scaling business. Now, most of that over the past 3 years has run into a massive wall, or a buzzsaw, I might add, right? Mm-hmm. Today, almost all companies that we monitor, and we are involved with, let's say, on any given basis, 30 to 60 active customers, where we monitor about 300, 400 active customers. Over the past years, growth rate has halved and cost has gone up almost double. Meaning growth at all costs led to half the growth at double the cost, right?
Yeah.
And so whatever happened, and as Mark Suster recently said a few weeks ago in April 2024, there was a podcast where he stated out of the 1,200 unicorns that have been created, 1,000 have no reason to be a unicorn and will never achieve $1 billion. What that means is that we are having a large oversupply of companies who have leveraged and abused the system. Abused is the wrong word. Leveraged the system in order to achieve something they shouldn't have been able to achieve.
Okay. Which is basically, essentially using the scalable system to be able, and the capital to be able to expedite that system tenfolds, hundredfolds for a very short period of time, although behind it, the unit economy and just generally the market and the whatever, yada, 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 wasn't there for them. Right?
That's right. And that, in the next 2 years, will be completely redefined. We're in the middle of it. Most don't see it. It is happening, and it's happening at such a light pace. What I call it has started, it is unstoppable, and it is accelerating right now.
Would you say that one of the key components of this new era system is the business model? And let me tell you why I'm telling you this. More and more, I start thinking, especially in the in this engagement outreach space, where right now the business model dictated the sort of like the prominent player. So one of the example, like Instantly AI, right, who kind of launched it with an average product, with an average GT, or maybe IGTM was great, but generally like no marketing budget, nothing. But their business model was exactly what the market wanted at that point of time. Fixed, small subscription, like a retainer, unlimited. That's it. So it's like you're paying $79.99 for a simple outreach tool, unlimited with whatever. It's not per seat. It's not a contract. It's not per year. You don't talk to sales team. You just basically do that. And they get to what, between 25 to 35 million ARR, like within like several years with like basically zero budget. just with this business model.
What you use here is the following. And I go a little bit deep and then I'm going to step back out, okay? The deepness that I'm going to go in and I'm going to say is that the world generally was built, the world we live in was built on an asymmetry of needs. That what the buyer wanted and that what the seller had and the way how to connect that there was a symmetry with. Now, the asymmetry in this case in the old days was computing power. Oh, only IBM could sell it to companies. Oh, today everybody gets computing power in their home, right? In wherever they want it. So computing power no longer has an asymmetry of needs. You can buy it,
Right.
like at what you can buy and afford a computer that is 10 times more powerful than any human being would ever need, but you can afford it right now. So there's no more asymmetry of needs. Now, in this case, the asymmetry of needs came, by a company. A company wanted to sell its product, but couldn't get access to the audience. In this case, a tool like a sales automation based on sequencing tool gave that company, on the basis of using one SDR with a tool, created an economy of scale, subtly created a scaling factor, used that technology as a scaling factor in order to reach that. That created asymmetry or overcame the asymmetry that previously you needed a large company with lots of SDRs to do it, right?
Right.
This asymmetry of needs
Yes.
is where AI comes in. And it will reshape. And I will say, I believe the asymmetry of needs and the role that AI plays will decrease 90% of the demand for salespeople that we have today. 90%. That means that 9 out of 10 people will not have a job the way they currently envision it, in the way they currently roll of it. This has started. This is accelerating, and it is completely unstoppable.
Are you talking only SMB or the kind of mid-sized enterprise as well, upmarket?
Everywhere. And I can tell you how it happens, where it comes from, how it occurs, step by step. We can go over it in detail. I'm telling you, it has started, it is accelerating, and it is unstoppable.
Okay, so do you have any recommendation for me, a young romantic that wants to stay at that tier 1 clients, personalization, creativity, not camping with AI and just going with like human side of the camp,
Being an
What should I
absolute
do?
expert in what you do. Be such an expert that Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant twisted an ankle, like a beloved person in the US for the role he played, not only on the basketball court, but also outside the basketball court. But Kobe Bryant twisted his ankle in the game. Before the game ended, he was on a private plane flying to Chicago. It was a game that took in LA. It's a well-known story. He was on his plane flying to Chicago to meet the surgeon that could surgically repair and fix his ankle. I always thought to myself I want to be the surgeon in Chicago that he's meeting. That's the one. Because that surgeon can write anything on the check, right? But the fact that you're such an expert, that the world's best basketball player in those days, and not arguably top 10 player all time, would meet you, right? That's the specialist. I want to be so good in my job that's me. Be that one.
Yeah.
Probably. That's not a surgeon at a hospital who's repairing 100 ankles a day or something. But you get the idea, right?
Yes.
Be that one. Be so good that people are willing to pay whatever they need to pay you to do that. That requires one or two things. It actually requires both two things. It requires an incredible passion for what you do. And you have to build an expertise level that is beyond, that is top 0.1, not top 10, top 10%. All of us are top 10%. If you're listening to this podcast, you're top 10%. If you have started a business and if you're able to make $1 million out of nothing in your business, you're top 1%. But if you're that good that you can write on that people will write on the check whatever you want them to, that's 0.1%. That's how good you need to be.
And my game plan is to build a relationship and to attract this top 0.1% talent to collaborate with me to build great projects, right? And that's kind of the idea of, and obviously being also part of that, but not settling with AI. I'm sorry.
But why? Listen to the following. Are you a person who called today, who called up and when you book a ticket, do you rather talk to a person to rebook your seat, to see if there's a seat, you want to move a seat? You rather talk to a person or you rather look at it at the app?
Yes, I would look at the app. Okay.
Okay, so in
Yes.
that case, like I can tell you 10 years ago, you would say, I'd rather talk to a person. Here's my point. We're saying no to AI and we're putting up resistance to AI because of the threat it does. And I can tell you, history is littered with bodies of people who said that. And it is going back to the 1990s and saying, I don't want a website, I want artisan shops. You go back to any form of progress is originally runs into resistance and fear. What if you, Michael, what if you do the opposite? What if you becomes the world's best implementation of AI that is as good as a human experience?
Jacco, so I don't use Tinder, so I don't use Instagram personally. I don't meet people online. I am one of those people that likes to fake. I don't even chat with people. So if you want to get me somewhere, you get me for coffee, we're gonna bond, but I kind of, so it's like, so I'm that person. So I'm like, so
Michael, I'm gonna challenge you.
Yeah, okay.
You're doing that, talking about a podcast, about launching new solutions, using a technology, in this case called Riverside. So you can't tell me, oh,
that's true.
I'm this cool guy that doesn't embrace technology while you release a technology podcast, completely using all technology left and right?
Yeah.
You can't.
Yes. I'm one of the people that just think that there should be a balance within the technology. And for example, the communication should be from person to a person. So if I receive a call from an AI selling me a product, I won't engage. But if I find a very nice, then you tell me if you cannot take the difference. So yes, and while telling this, we're finalizing the deal on that AI agent SDR product that we're going to be investing. So I'm being a hypocrite here, by the way. So I just wanted to be clear here. So the things that I personally don't want to do doesn't mean that I'm not going to invest. So it's just
no, Michael. I don't buy that, Michael. You can be. My opinion is the following: you have me on your show. I'm very passionate and I'm an expert at this. You can't get away and weasel your way out of this. And so I'm like, okay, look, this is a mano a mano right now, right? You have to understand, AI is here to stay. It is unstoppable. It is gonna accelerate, and it is. I'm telling you, it is everywhere. So now you and I can say, it's like, well, Jacco, I don't like that, and I want to talk to a person. I go like, Michael, you do not know what you want yet.
That's true.
Like I'm looking, like, was I similar to you like 3 years ago? Absolutely. Like, why? Because my mindset of AI was executing a badly known process, aka mass outbound emailing, applying AI technology to that today. That is a bad process executed by something. What if the experience is a lot better? What if the experience that you have on a call is with an expert in the field who knows everything about you and who can immediately tell you, like, Michael, we shouldn't be talking in the first place, right? Like, we're just like, what if that will be the case?
Yeah.
Okay. And so my point is this, and then, if you think about what is a great sales experience and you go down the list of items, right? Look, there's two items. What makes a great seller from the seller's perspective and what makes the seller a great seller from the buyer perspective, right? If from the buyer perspective, what are the things, tell me, help me out here. What are the things that the buyer appreciates the most when they talk to a seller, a sales professional? What do they like the most?
Probably the amount of research they did on them. So the amount of information they know about them, right? Then knowledge about their industry, about their unique needs and something that they are, right? Etc. And then also the knowledge of their product or the knowledge of, I got your point. All right. Like you're punching me like basically here. I got you. And then you can I can continue on that, but essentially like you can be a very good AI that could be that person for you. So you don't need a person. Yes. If there's no lag. Yeah.
What makes the best, if all sales leaders here, if you're listening to this right now, right? I'm going to ask you the following question. We're going to be like 3 seconds quiet. Okay, Mike, I want us to be 3 seconds quiet after I ask this question. I'm going to say, what makes the best salesperson on your team? Everybody listens. If you're a sales leader or CRO or whatever, you're like, pick the best salesperson that you ever have worked with, right? And then what makes them the best person? Okay, I'm going to 3 seconds quiet. You know what 99% of sales professionals, and I'm talking to this all day long, right? To sales leaders, revenue leaders.
Mhm.
You know what they talk about? What is the top skill?
What's the top skill?
Diligent follow-up.
Mm.
Being on time, being well prepared, follow
true.
through thoroughly.
That's true.
Okay. All these things we mentioned, AI can do a better job at that. Now, Michael, what I don't want you to think about is like, okay, so I'm firing my salesperson and replacing it with an AI. No, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
I want you to think of a sales job as in 10 different actions, whatever they are, 10. And I want you to understand that in the next 12 months, 3 of those 10 actions are going to be replaced by AI. That means that if I have 10 sellers, that the total capacity I need means that I don't need 3 sellers any longer. I only need 7 sellers.
I understand.
Slowly but surely, in every part of that process, one of these blocks are going to be eliminated by an AI job that does a better job. Ending up with 1 seller that can pick up the phone the moment in time something goes wrong.
Would you say that it's more like a transformation than the replacement in a way, right? So the job will be just transformed, right?
Absolutely,
It's
100%.
It's like I've read that, like whatever, 20 years ago, marketing was about the communication, and now marketing is about the automation, right? So now you're working someone that could automate marketing, but not communicate. So now you're looking for the writers, copywriters, messengers to write.
May I amplify this? May I put some gasoline on it, so to speak? If I have 10 sellers, how many are great?
Okay. Great. 4.
4. Okay. Now, in order to get to those 4, right? Those 4 are the output of a process in itself. Right?
Yeah.
Those 4 didn't just jump in and start on a call. So those 4 are the output of the following processes, right? In order for them to be that great, I had to have an education process. I had to train them on it. In order to train them, I had to onboard them. I had an onboarding process. In order to onboard them, I had to hire them. I had a hiring process.
Right.
In order to hire them, I had a job description. I had a job description process.
Yeah,
in order to get the job description, I had to request budget. So I have to have a budget request process. This entire thing that comes down to this one person that operates has 7, 8, 9 processes beforehand that have to be executed well before I get 4 out of 10 people to perform. Now, is this wise for a modern entrepreneur who is trying to sell his or her product and service? They have to invest not only in the person, but in all the processes that give rise to this person.
No, it doesn't make sense. So it's easier to just,
Now,
makes sense.
If I go back 120 years ago, I see the rise of marketing, right? ADA comes out of 1886 or 18 something like that, right? But if I go back another 100 years, I come to the start of sales.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why do we need sales? If we go back to your world of artisanship, if I buy from a butcher in the 1700s, I buy from the person who slaughtered the animal, who can tell me which part of the cow it is.
Right, that's true.
You see what I'm saying?
I see.
The middle person is being eliminated.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is because the what we previously had, the asymmetry of information, AI is eliminating that.
Yeah, and then just for the listeners, to help, and this is from my research when I was preparing for this interview, one of the answers is education of the buyers. That's the answer that you gave, right?
I think that for me, what is the most what I think is important there, Michael, what is important to realize is there's a few simple principles. Number one principle, the buyer dictates the sales process. The buyer tells us how they want to buy. And that doesn't mean an individual buyer tells you what to buy, but they buy in volume, right? So the trends of how they wishes to buy gives us the ability and access to that market. Number one trend. Number two trend, AI doesn't rule. It is a misunderstanding that AI rules. Process rules AI, rules skills. Now, I'm going to make a blunt statement, and that is like that is intended for you to think through. Skills are becoming obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm going to give you an example of that. What I mean with that, you're not on Instagram or you're not on YouTube videos, but like, and neither am I, by the way. I've removed myself from Instagram. I do watch a YouTube video every now and then, but I just know plenty enough that to me be dangerous, right? But what I've seen is like plenty of times how to use this particular iPhone, how to make a good picture, right? Oh, you throw some water on the table, you have some reflection, and look at the picture.
Yeah.
That is what I mean with skills are becoming obsolete. Our skills for photography, rather than have a multi-year development and training, I now have people using an iPad, like an iPhone with some trick they learned on Instagram to become a wedding photographer, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So skills are becoming obsolete, and in sales too. Now, the problem in sales is, on top of all this, which accelerates all that if you compare the price of an uneducated resource in sales, what we pay for that, it is a disproportionate price to all those people who have been educated on the job. And the primary reason for that education is because there's asymmetry of needs. This asymmetry makes that one middle person a powerful person. And that asymmetry is being released. And yes, the one expert that I have on the team will continue to play a fantastic role because they got to define the process. They got to set up the process so that the AI can start building on, so that the skills level no longer is needed. So absolutely, process cannot be defined by an AI out of nothing today. Maybe in the future. I don't want to be too futuristic. Okay. Now think about that, okay? Then I want you to help me think about one thing more. This is problematic because I just saw the movie Back to the Future. And in that, many future trends are predicted. And the same thing with Oblivion, and the same thing with Star Trek, and the same thing with Star Wars. You see that futurists have over a long time have predicted where the future goes to, right?
Yeah.
However, they always seem to be wrong on time.
Interesting. Okay, continue. What do you mean? Okay.
What you're seeing is that, like we are seeing with the likes of AI, 3 months before AI launched, McKinsey famously came out with a report that says it's going to take us another decade.
Mm-hmm.
What we believed would take a decade took mere months. I believe that as a human being, we have a really good ability to predict what the future looks like, but we suck at predicting the speed that it comes at us with. So Michael, my advice that I give, like as a consultant to CXOs and CEOs in our business is the following. Predict what you think your business will look like in 10 years. And assume that it will look like in 18 months. And then I go back to the question, are we sure that sales are not replaceable? Are we sure that 10 years from now, that sales is not deemed that 70, 80% of that could have been replaced by AI? And I like to think it can. And I like to think it will make us actually better. And I will think that keeps us to 20, 30% that are the experts in this field. We're going to continue those. That I all believe in. And so I'm very excited about that future. And if you tell me, like, Jacco, does that mean that you don't feel that sales is going to be here to stay? Or no, I think it's a fantastic job. I just think that we got a whole bunch of people who have no reason to be a seller, the same way that in the early 1600s, people were operating each other on the sidewalk, had no reason being a doctor, right? Like, so yeah, that's where my passion comes from. That's how I look at AI. I don't look at it as a threat. I look at it as an enablement and as a release of all these, so to speak, like people who think they can sell, but really are just in it for the money.
I appreciate you for this, and I totally agree with you. And I kind of sign up for your camp, for our camp now, basically. I think just to finish on this and just moving on, I think my concern was just purely that I feel that a lot of people that sign up for AI are for the quick gain. It's just the race for the gold, like a gold rush race, right? Everyone is there, everyone is doing that, all the conferences, and there's so intent behind it. So I just don't want to spend my time on consuming all this information and sort of like always kind of trying to be in the front of the innovation or the frontier if I don't feel that I want to lead that crowd, right? But I agree with you that when the future comes, embracing it and then working with it and creating in harmony with it make more sense than fighting it, right? Because it's inevitable, right? So yeah. All right.
Nancy-
So
Nancy
Mhm, go
Duarte
ahead.
has a fantastic quote that Nancy Duarte, she's a like a TED talker and a good friend of mine that had a fantastic quote that to the day still triggers me to the point that I'm sharing it with you. Here's the quote: "The future isn't just a place we get to go; it's a place we get to create." You and I,
That's
Michael,
true.
we can create it. It is
That's
just
true.
like, why don't we create something beautiful out of it?
That's true. Yeah. It's like out of love, not out of fear, right?
Embrace the change and and guide it and the same way like you can be afraid of your children when you're born because you know they will outlive you, hopefully, right? They know they will outperform you. They know they will out earn you, right? All those things will happen. Like, it doesn't mean you fear them. Just embrace them and guide them. You coach them and you help them along their way. Same thing. AI is just a child that we're raising to maturity, and we get to choose what that maturity looks like.
Speaking about the AI, so I have this section or like a block of questions, this or that question that I usually ask my guests, and I tailoring them for every specific one. And I wanted to, because you talk a lot about the AI and just generally an expert and you're passionate about the AI. So I asked the AI, I asked, build me a list of this or that questions tailored for Jacco. So he did a bunch of very corporate, boring questions. And I said, okay, spice them up a little. So here they are. So this or that. All right. So focus on fewer high quality leads or cast a wide net with tons of prospects.
Focus on fewer high quality leads.
Would you rather supercharge your current team with killer training or bring in seasoned pros to elevate the game?
Two options there.
Yeah.
If I open up a new market, I want an experienced player. If I want to scale my existing market, is train up the team.
Are you team product led or sales led?
I add a third one, experience led.
Experience led. Can you explain?
So what I find is that, and again, this is, and I'm sorry for living in quotes today, but I'm throwing another one at you, and I'm not doing Dr. Maya Angelou a great service here, but it's something like that. People don't remember what you did. People don't remember what you said, but people remember what you made them feel. We believe at Winning by Design, one of the great things is make the customer feel happy, feel excited, feel and so on and so forth. And so I think that from that perspective, they will remember the experience with Winning by Design. And impact can often be perceived that we improve the win rate, that we improve the growth rate, that we improve NRR, that we, whatever it is. In the end, it's in the eyes of the beholder. Because there's so many other variables in there. But the one thing we do control is that we gave them a great experience.
The experience, yeah. It's like the showmanship, like all the time you perform on the stage, like you just share the energy, right? And whatever you're doing.
Yeah, no, I think that there was Scott Galloway at the end of all his talks. He makes you aware about the challenges that males have these days, right? He uses his audience. What you see me do in my audience is I believe that joy is infectious and that it will, like Martin Luther King said, hate cannot conquer hate. You got to conquer hate with love. I believe that we live in a fearful time. We fear everything. Fear cannot overcome fear. You got to have joy. But the things that you see in my keynotes and is like, I just want to spread joy. Like, while we're here together, why not make it a joyful experience? And joy floats on other people. Joy is very infectious. So if I see a large crowd and they give me a microphone, I have two objectives. Number one, make sure that you use this in order to educate them on something that's meaningful for the rest. And number two, get them a fantastic, joyful experience so their life is a little bit better today.
All right. So moving on. Subscription, lock them down annually for steady flow or keep them flexible with monthly deals or monthly subscription?
Not even a doubt. Monthly is better, meaning that you get the better customers, right? Not a doubt. So in most successful companies run on monthly. You can even go faster and you get to Amazon. You just give people a great experience and they keep coming back, buying more from you. It doesn't matter whether you have a subscription or not. Now, obviously, Amazon has the Prime subscription. I get that. But that is only a small fraction of the amount of money people spend on Amazon here in America, Bol in Europe, Alibaba in China and whatnot.
What do you think about this? Talk with Chili Piper, them, and what they're doing is they're adding it's an annual subscription, but if you want to do monthly, you add 50% premium on top of that monthly, and people pay for the pilot. What do you think of this?
Yeah, I think I think that as long as you let the customer know what they're buying and you're now, you have to understand this. I'll give this explanation. It's follow me. And again, I'm trying to educate at the same time and give us all like this like mind-blowing experience, like that. Think of the following. You are selling me routers.
Yes.
Cisco routers.
Okay. Yes.
Pallet full.
Okay.
$2 million worth of routers, a truckload full. The truck ships from your factory, the Cisco factory, to me, the buyer. Who takes on all the risk?
You paid me for those routers already?
Like
invoice, you wired me.
Sorry?
You wired me the money. So now you're taking the risks.
The buyer takes all the risk, and the buyer takes the risk from the moment it ships from your dock, literally. Like from the old days, I still recognize that. The moment that pallet is picked up and it has an airway bill number slapped on it, the buyer, am owner of that product. I take on the risk. Technically speaking, it's the shipper who has the responsibility to transport. But
I got the point.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I am selling you software, and it's usage based. Who takes on all the risk?
The buyer, not the seller.
The seller. I got to pay AWS. So the risk,
right. Oh, that's true. Mm-hmm.
The seller takes on all the risk.
Right.
I had to buy the entire infrastructure. In some cases, I had to learn everything about you. So by the time I service up your first usage product, your consumption product, it needs to be working, right? So the seller, take on all the risk. Now, when I am the buyer, right, that risk, when I'm selling Cisco routers, I amortize that risk, or I spread that out over capital expenditure payments, right? I say, I'm going to retire this equipment after 5 years, or telco used to be 7 years. So I split every year how much as a buyer I take on as a risk, right? I spread that out. As a seller, I take that, when I'm selling, like a subscription service, there's no spreading out of that risk. I'm taking that on the chin on day one.
Yeah.
This means that there's a difference in relationship in any other part of the world, in any other part of business. When a factor of risk shifts that dramatically from one side to the other side, that will be a complete disruption of the business model.
True.
However, we have not recognized that in SaaS and in subscription models. We still hire former SAP VPs and CROs and put them in positions at SaaS companies who still operate with payment terms and mindsets and everything of that world, hire people from that world, use methodologies from that old world, and apply that into this completely and radically new world where the risk sits all with the seller, not with the buyer. For example, your client acquisition cost is often 40, 50, 60%. I am often paying a salesperson. If a salesperson brings me in like today $500,000 to $1 million in revenue, I often pay them $250,000 to $400,000 for that.
Up to 30%.
Right? That means I pay 40, 50% on the dollar of what I'm selling in year one, already goes straight to the seller salary comp and whatnot. I'm not even including marketing costs and everything. I'm just hard cost here, right?
Right.
That is the cost I've taken on as a buyer, as a seller in SaaS. I then have to amortize that over the years to come. Now, I amortize that because my retention and renewal is supposed to kick that in, and I'm supposed to not have the acquisition cost any longer, which is historically taking the place. But now, because the market is so under churn, I now have to start investing more and more in the customer success side, not to lose that customer. Meaning that my post-sales costs are now actually ramping up year over year, no longer adding up to a fraction of the acquisition cost, but in some cases are becoming as much as the acquisition cost. So I am no longer just amortizing the acquisition cost. This drops the profitability of SaaS and of a usage-based model significantly. Way to offset that, as the team at Chili Piper can do, is increase the cost when the risk is higher. If I give you all this, hey, I face a higher risk that you unsubscribe, so I'm going to charge you extra. And 50% seems to be pretty reasonable to me.
Makes sense.
Right? Now, if you sign up 12 months and I have I have a mathematical guarantee that 98% of the time you're going to renew, then I can live with that. Right?
I agree with that. That's a good sort of like option, that you don't need to negotiate that 1-year contract all the time, going back. And like, the reason why we have hundreds of ongoing customers at our team. I have hundreds, 300 people at 300 SDRs kind of, right? And I am using reply.io. It's just the fact that they gave me the deal where we are both sharing the risk when I approached Outreach or Sales Loft, and I would be one of their like big client agencies. Their sales team always wanted to get the risks on my end. Like, hey, let's do like a 2-year contract or a 1 year. Let's do this. And that because of that kind of negotiations, right? You got the point. I didn't sign up for them. But this model of the Chili Piper where you can add risk where, hey, pay premium, but we're meeting you halfway. It does make sense. It does make sense.
I'll give you another perspective in this world. Like, per today, and Michael, I say this because I know that these will trigger well on your podcast, right? And I'm saying that, and I can provide you the foundation by later on. By the way, I'll send you. Look, I've seen that when reporters do a good job, right? They show you the papers of their research and where they got it from, right? So what I will share with you post broadcast here, right? I will share you all the papers of research that I have, so that you can go like, hey, look. This is not something happening in a vacuum. This is not just an opinion. This is actually, like, this comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, here's my thought on you on the following. I believe, what I'm seeing out there right now is that the lion's share of the chief revenue officers are following a playbook that is driving their companies into the ground without the intent with good intent. So they're not bad intended. But they're driving their companies into the ground right now because they're executing still a 2017, 18, 19 playbook, hoping that the world will change. And we can tell you, the world has changed over the past 2 to 3 years, slowly, like a slow decline. That will not jump back up to double the growth within a quarter. So if it would change back to where we were, it will take at least another 2 to 3 years. That is a span of 5 years. I can tell you, over a span of 5 years, in the world of SaaS, nothing will be the same 5 years later while AI is playing such a significant role. In this world that we live in, most CROs are currently driving their companies into the ground, and they don't even know it. And they do it with believing that they're doing the best thing for the company. Okay, let me tell you why that is. CRO, second, what does the R stand for?
ARR?
The CRO, what does this?
The chief revenue officer, right?
Okay. And so is that person actually acting on behalf of all the revenue?
Well, theoretically, yes. The delivery team, the acquisition, both the retention and the new acquisition, both should be.
Okay. Now follow my thinking here. I'm at $1 million revenue. Okay. I just gained my first $1 million. Okay. So I have $1 million of acquisition and $0 from revenue, from retention. You follow me? Okay.
Yeah.
Where does all my marketing dollars go?
To the acquisition.
Okay. I'm growing to $2 million. I now have $1 million renewal, $1 million acquisition. Where does most of my marketing go? My marketing spend?
Acquisition.
I am at $10 million in revenue. 3 years later, I have, right? Where does all my marketing spend go?
Acquisition. They will go to acquisition.
Okay. Michael, I'm at $100 million.
Okay. So now at the sum scale, when obviously, because again, if you're adding up the new acquisition, the retention is kind of 100%, then you kind of go to the acquisition. But at some point in time, at 2 million, 10 million, 100 million, you should hit the point where the churn rate, or this inflection point where the customers that you're losing will be higher or equal that you're acquiring. So in this point, you either are investing 50-50 or even more into there, and so on and so forth. Is that the point, or? Who
has the mental capability in order to determine that point comes up and then make the decision to start the spending pattern?
CEO.
Okay. And this comes down to it, why I'm saying it. When that revenue goes up, and the blue of revenue, of retention, and that part of retention goes from like 10% to 100%. And when you're at $300, $400 million, like At $400 million, $380 million of your revenue will come from retention, right?
Yes.
$20 million will come from our,
Yeah.
and to still find that 90%, 95% of marketing dollars go there. Now, mind you, it doesn't only apply to marketing dollars. The human expenses on salespeople by far exceeds the human expenses on the retention. So we'll see the company's premium resources at $400 million are still focused primarily on that
acquisition.
little sliver that sits on top of the bar chart that says acquisition. It is a disproportionate spend
That's fine.
where the revenue is coming from.
Fine.
Now, the chief revenue officer focuses primarily on that little sliver and drives his entire company on that sliver. And he or she assumes that they can make the sliver on top bigger.
That's funny.
And that is mathematically a lost battle that they don't understand how the machine works. And when we explain that, when I'm standing in front of that and showing that to a company and saying like, you are fighting gravity. And no, by the way, the amount of people that are now working on that little sliver, right? Same tiny sliver has now 4 or 5 folded, right? They're like, you're fighting gravity. It's called the denominator effect. You're focusing on the wrong thing. And this is what the point I point out is, as a chief revenue officer, you're doing the right, you're with the best intent because you just want to grow the company. But you're driving the company into the ground.
I love that.
This level of insight tells me the following. Today's organizations are run by a number of executives who fundamentally do not understand how the business model works underneath, which brings it back to the point earlier, how important is the business model? The business model is everything. But in this business model, I compare it to the following. In the 2015-16 timeframe, we're driving a bus. There's one person who knows it and everybody else, Jim Collins, good to great, everybody else comes on the bus. Okay? We're flying rockets right now. When we're driving on the bus, only one person has access to the steering wheel, the gas pedal, the gear shifts, and so on and so forth, and looking at the dashboard. We're flying rockets right now. We have 6 people sitting side by side looking at a panel, and anybody can flip a switch that explodes this rocket. And people are not communicating with each other. They're not speaking the same language. They're operating in silos, and they're flipping switches. I wonder what's this one doing? I wonder what... Not coordinated. And as a result, this machinery that we have seen has started, these machineries, these rockets, their growth patterns have started to implode on them because they do not understand how this machine works.
I love this. Thank you so much for this insight and analogy. I've, again, not looking at behind the scene of the $400 million company, how they operate. I love it. Now, a quick last final question for you. So I'm in a professional services like you guys are, right? Because again, Winning by Design is a sales consulting firm, B2B sales consulting firm, right? So tell me this, like in our line of business, when we have 30, 60 clients, 100 clients, and then we have churn, and you're always focusing, making sure that you are limiting that churn to 5%, 10%, whatever. The cost of acquisition is very high because of the competition, because of other things. So essentially investing into obviously customer success, account manager, relationship, there's still like delivery costs. Like you have that team, so you have that cost in, but you still invest more into marketing and sales. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of, you need to have the acquisition because the acquisition will balance out the churn that you're going to lose in a critical situation like now, basically, when the clients are churning because they are like limiting the budget. Is that the strategy that you guys are doing as well? Or you're reducing the new acquisition, doubling down on customer success, account manager, word of mouth retention, and basically you don't care about that sales function part?
I'm going to use an analogy because I know the analogy people will remember. I'm out on the ocean and I'm trying to crawl up on a wave so I can get back to shore, right? And what you want to hit the brake of the wave right at the right time so the wave takes you ashore, right? As kids, we used to love doing this, right? In service, doing it for a living, right? But now the crawling up on the wave takes lots of effort, right? Or waiting for the right wave. Now, similarly down here. So you can either fight the wave or you can leverage it. In your case, it was you got to leverage it. So the people you sell to, what is their average? What is their title?
Head of sales, director of sales, VP of sales, director of marketing. So sales marketing people.
What is the average turnover? Like, how long is their tenure on average?
So if it's a mid-sized company, so we're looking at probably several years, probably their tenure, probably, yeah.
Okay, so what you're looking for is like, you have to leverage, you won't be able to think of selling to that company multiple times. You have to understand when you're selling a human service, you're selling to a human on the other side in this case, right? And so that person, when they change a new job, that's when you get your recurring revenue.
Yeah. So they will take you with them, basically.
Take you with them.
Yeah.
Now, SaaS often has a tenure, right? Like people have changed their jobs every 18 months. With,
Yeah, quicker.
And so that means that you essentially have the wave working for you because your existing customers become 18 months from now a new customer at the new job. And that's the reason why you have Winning by Design. We have many 2, 3, 4, 5-time customers because over history, they just bring us into the next company.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, we refer to that not as recurring revenue, but as reoccurring revenue. The difference between recurring and reoccurring, and again, that's just because I love the topic and I love to explain it to people. Recurring has a known interval every month, every year, and so every quarter.
Yeah.
And has an approximate size that is the same, 98% of the previous or 107% of the previous, right? So it's reoccurring. The NRR or the GRR to give you that range. Reoccurring is independent in size. Hey, they stop buying for 2 quarters and then come back, at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And the size can be different. They're buying you $100,000 worth of service, then $10,000 worth of service, then $30,000. There's no rhyme or reason where these dollars are. That's reoccurring revenue. You live in the world of reoccurring revenue.
We are trying, you know what? We are measuring it a recurring revenue, but now you're saying this makes sense. Like, because we still are paying a monthly retainer every month. But then you're right. Like if they pause for a year and then going back, it's recurring. I actually never measured a recurring, by the way. Thank you so much, Jacco. Like it's cool. Huh. I thought that I won't know something new for my line of business. Wow. Love it. Like you guys are great. It's just, and again, so we've been like one of the best high performance agencies in the B2B appointment setting for several years now. And we're like beat everyone. And it's so lonely because I wanted to learn from companies that can kind of do it better, but my competition sucks. Like everyone that's listening and you're my competition, you guys suck. Like do better work. But you guys are cool. So I would love to tap into your experience more and learn more about the winning design, maybe as the part of my other podcast, because it's not what this audience want. They don't want to know the agency probably life. But anyhow, sir, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. Would you like to say any final words, or are we just kind of finishing off because I cut you off there for a second?
Give me the top 2 takeaways that you learned from this podcast, top 2 or 3.
I look at the AI a bit differently from I started this conversation, for sure. The fact about the CRO is really cool. Like that, the CRO focusing on the new acquisition, although the retention revenue make more sense, and that's where the budget should go with the when you're kind of growing and reducing the churn and new acquisition, recurring. It's insane. And just generally, I kind of really appreciate the conversation, because the part of this conversation is not just about what we're talking with you about, but the amount of the preparation and the work, the interviews that I saw, the amount of posts that I did. I probably read 2 years of your posts, back to 2 years, to just kind of get the sense of what I'm trying to achieve with this conversation. So this whole journey is the lesson, right? So it goes far beyond and obviously the connection that we made as well. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you for having me. I've published a book, Revenue Architecture, on this topic. And it is a thick piece, so that it describes all the history, how we got here, explains to where we're going, to the future, and how we can embrace all this using scientific best practices and principles. To the listener, my words are as follows. We live in a fantastic, absolute, wonderful time of change. Embrace it. Leverage it to your advantage. Don't try to fight it necessarily. Shape it. And like I said, when I said earlier, I believe that the fantastic quote by the renowned Nancy Duarte, the future isn't just a place we get to go, it's a place we get to create. Let's make that our journey. Let's create a beautiful place.
Let's make a great future. Yeah, let's make it. Appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much.